So my name's Jason. I'm the founder here at Minga, and this has been a module that we've been working on both from a research perspective and a workflow perspective, as well as a technical perspective for a long time. And we have lots of interviews of schools and administrators and teachers and students that have all poured into this. So I'm just going to pass a thank you back to everyone who's contributed so much time and energy into bringing this together, as well as a thank you to everyone on our team here that I know has been working very hard to bring this module to fruition. So we like to say, with the Hall Pass module, we're going to give you the opportunity to take control of your hallway the right way. And we're going to kind of talk about it in a workflow perspective today on how you'd actually really use it on campus and get started with digital hall passes. So a quick overview on our student engagement platform as a whole is the Hall Pass is the latest module in our student engagement platform. And the Minga student engagement platform is your one-stop shop for everything outside the classroom. So built on the foundation of our digital student ID module, which gives you, a very flexible student ID solution on campus, solving typically what we hear is the most common problem with student IDs, which is just having an ID that you have reliable and consistent and secure access to all the time with every student, either on campus or even in those situations on campus, like events and activities and dances. So that digital ID module is the foundation of the Minga student engagement platform. And then from there, we have a community and communication module, which really takes advantage of the fact that that ID platform gives us a direct connection to everyone on campus. So now we have the ability to push announcements directly to students, share events and activities calendars directly with students through a platform that they're looking at and engaging with all the time. And then from that community and communication module, we have a tracking and PBIS module, which now lets you leverage that footprint with every student to track activity, to track behaviors, to check them in and out of activities, reward points and engage with points, and even run fun competition on campus by grade or by student and stuff like that through the tracking and PBIS module, which also has a full event management tracking for things like ticketing and event check-in and tracking tickets to prom and all that stuff. And then the fourth module is our brand new Hall Pass module, which then takes advantage of all that stuff, ties it together, and gives you a digital Hall Pass footprint that we're going to cover today. And then lastly, an additional module is the SMS module, which lets you then push notifications via text messaging and SMS to replace and integrate some of those other tools on campus you might be using for things like student communication. So digging right into Hall Passes. So the first question, of course, is to answer to yourself as we go through this is, why do you want to go to a digital Hall Pass? And at the end of the day, we hear lots of things, usually the symptomatic. The symptoms are things like, well, we just feel like there's students are in the hall just meandering far too long, or we have problem situations where maybe there's vandalism or vaping in a bathroom and we want to have an understanding of what's going on or why or who's doing it. Maybe we feel like teachers are concerned about instructional time in classroom and we want to have kids in the classroom more. But at the end of the day, we typically want two things out of a Hall Pass system. So the first one that's very challenging to get unless you go digital is, of course, the data. We want to understand how Hall Passes are being used, who's using Hall Passes, how are they being used, when are they being used, all that type of information. And then the second thing we want is security. So to have an understanding that if someone is in the hallway, that they have a reason to be there. And security we can do in like lots of traditional ways that can lock things down very, very tightly. Then we have an enforcement issue. But the data is where digital Hall Passes really shine. And we're going to walk through today, really emphasizing and working off that data and starting with, the first thing we want to do is implement the hall pass and minimize the workflow and impact on classroom instruction so that the hall passes actually get used. And so then we can use the data, or use the use of those hall passes to generate data so we understand how they're being used. From there, once we have that data and information, we take that, identify the problem areas of hall pass usage, and then put controls. My friend is trying to make me laugh through my window. And then, implement the controls just on the problem areas of hall pass usage, so that rather than put, strong enforcement or security procedures into place across campus that have a significant impact on everybody's workflow, we're only going to do it in cases where it's really needed. And then lastly, we monitor and manage the hall pass usage over time, so that we can kind of adjust and fine tune those controls and procedures as they keep going. So let's start with enable and set up the hall pass module. One of the really beautiful parts of the hall pass module is that rolling out the digital ID module is a strong value proposition for everyone on campus. Students prefer digital IDs. Most teachers do, most security guards do, because it just gives everyone reliable access to the ID. And the hook there is that now that we have something rolled out that everybody, is eager and very happy to download or use the app on their phone, or, download and use however on their Chromebook or whatever, adding the hall pass module on top of it is very easy. It's literally as simple as just touching base with us. And make sure I have the right one here. Is just touching base with us, and then we are going to enable that hall pass module on Minga. The next time everyone opens up Minga, they'll load that new module in, unbeknownst in some cases to them from a student's perspective, it's completely transparent. And now we have the hall pass system rolled out across campus. And from a setup perspective, because it's rolled out on top of the ID module, things like additional authentication or introducing new links or new apps to everyone is completely off the table. It's just really simply rolled out on top of it. We just have a couple of ID settings to set up at the very beginning. Most importantly is we want to identify the types of hall passes that we want on campus and the permissions of how hall passes are created. So that can be as simple as a 5-minute process. Once you come into hall passes, you're going to see the hall pass manager show up right on Minga. We click on that, and we're just going to click on 2 tabs to get started. The first one will come over to hall pass settings, and we're going to set our initial restrictions, things like max passes per day and max number of active passes. At the beginning, we're going to set those numbers quite high, because right now our objective is simply to monitor what's going on across campus. And we won't have any other controls in place, but we can do a couple other things here, like, who can set and grant passes and create passes. And then on that note, you'll notice this, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit, especially when it comes to the introductory workflow of using hall passes, is students granting their own passes. And then we pop over to hall pass types. And we just analyze we have 6, and I think we'll probably release with 8 default hall pass types already built into Minga, and then you can create your own. That one other checkbox that's important when we're getting started is this: which hall passes can students create? And so you'll see in this case, my fountain and my restroom pass, students are able to create. And we're going to talk about that in 2 seconds. Once that's done, the hall pass system is now set up and ready to go. Now it's just simply about working through a couple of procedures on how to implement the digital hall pass solution in the classroom and with your students. And getting started simple is really, really easy, because when it comes to hall pass usage, approximately 95% of our hall pass usage are fountain and restroom passes. Most commonly, it's can I go to the bathroom or can I get a drink of water? Like me right now. So an introductory The introduction of the hall pass onto campus is really just about focusing on the workflow right away for those restroom and bathroom hall passes that are going to cover off. If we can get those being used, that's going to give us a really good picture into how hall passes are being used on campus. And that's what we want right out of the gate. So the process without a digital hall pass system, or I guess with no hall pass system, the process is, can I go to the bathroom? Mr. Anderson says yes, and off I go. I don't do anything else. We're not enforcing who's in the hall or not. More traditionally, what we see, especially in middle and high school environments, is there's some type of physical hall pass, a card or a block or something that's showing that I have a hall pass. So the process is, Mr. Anderson, can I go to the bathroom? Mr. Anderson says yes. I pick up the hall pass, or he hands me the hall pass, and off I go. So in this case, we want to mimic so that we get accurate usage, because in interviewing schools using digital hall pass systems of some type, the biggest challenge we found was that if we had a significant impact on the workflow in the classroom, the system was not used. And we interviewed a lot of schools with very expensive hall pass systems that were not being used, or were only being used by 20 to 25% of the staff, because it would have intermittent or interruptions to the classroom and instructional workflow. So we really focused on creating a very smooth and streamlined process to get this started, so we could get accurate data and have it widely adopted on campus. So the process for that on campus, I'm just pulling up so I have a couple different views at the same time. So the process for that on campus now is, Mr. Anderson, can I go to the bathroom? Mr. Anderson says, yes. Go ahead and create your hall pass. And now as a student, I'll just refresh to make sure I have this accurate. And now as a student, I can just simply pop into Minga on my Chromebook, on my device, on a computer. Minga is accessible from any device in any browser, or as a native app on iOS and Android. I can pop into student tools. I can create my hall pass. Students, as you remember when I set it up, only have access to fountain and restroom, and they're always limited to 5-minute hall passes. So I can create my fountain hall pass, start my pass. And now all I need to show Mr. Anderson is that I have a hall pass. It's on my student ID. I show him. I can now leave my phone on the desk, or I could take it with me if that's okay. But generally speaking, of course, we don't want the student taking their phone and getting lost and distracted in the bathroom forever, or maybe they're writing a test and they don't want to have their device. But what I've shown here is that I've created the hall pass, minimal impact on Mr. Anderson's instruction time, and off I go to the bathroom. So now the only enforcement procedure we need on campus is ensuring that if I do get stopped in the bathroom, I do have a hall pass. And so in the first obvious case, if I did take my device with me, that's very simple. I'm simply going to show my hall pass on my ID, built right on top of my digital ID to whoever stopped me. I can see that the ID is live, our live clock timer and our flashy flash that's showing that it's a live ID, as well as the hall pass is counting down automatically for me. So now I can also see how much time I have, and if I was stopped, it's very easy to see that I do have a fountain pass and I've got a few minutes left. If I don't have my device with me, well, the nice part here is that any staff member can also see that ID right from the central dashboard here. So I could go, hey, Jason, do you have an ID, or do you have a hall pass? I say, yes, I do. And I pull it up and I look right on Jason's ID, right from my device, through the management console. I can see not only Jason's student ID, but I can see Jason's hall passes right on there as well. Oh, thanks, you do have a pass. Hey, hurry up, scooch along, and back to class. So very, very easy workflow, simple and non-interruptive workflow to bringing this on campus and introducing it. And if we want to go to the next level, of security here, is that we can actually use a teacher's Chromebook as a kiosk instead, where students would sign in with Google or Microsoft and then create their hall pass right there, kiosk style, if we wanted to and didn't want them to have access to their device in classroom. And both of those work on the same premise, though, is that we're leveraging the student to take that sort of 15 seconds to create their own hall pass so that we're not instructed or interrupting instruction time. And now those hall passes are created and off we go. So we've launched and we're just focusing on these simple processes and easy workflows, self-guided training for everyone. And really important here is focusing on that minimal impact on the classroom so that we can get into the second phase is reporting on hall pass usage and identifying problem areas. So now we've given, say, 2 to 3 weeks for the hall pass system to run. And now we have some data to take a look at maybe we've had even a couple incidents and we can look at it. How is hall pass usage going? What types of hall passes are being used? When are they being used? And then most importantly, let's report on our top users and identify our top app users. So doing that once we've gone digital is very slick. Right in that hall pass manager, we're gonna navigate from our hall pass dashboard, which is always showing me my active hall passes. And in this case, I do have some nice controls here. I can end hall passes. If I see a student and they have an active hall pass, but they're up to no good, I can end their pass and escort them back to class. Whatever we need to do in that case. But at this point, we're coming back into hall pass reports. And now we're starting to take a look at how hall passes are actually being used on campus. And so we can see here, I've got 3 days of data here on this demo that I have at the moment. I can see the total number of hall passes that have been generated in the last 3 days, as well as the aggregate time of that hall pass usage. So I know how much time these aggregately how much time students have spent out of the classroom on hall passes over the last 3 days in this case. And so here gives me a quick look at just looking at my different types of hall passes that are being used. You can see this is demo data. So of course, it's probably unlikely that we had 1,920 minutes of health passes issued yesterday, but maybe, we had a bad chicken day. And so we had a lot of health passes go yesterday. And I'm even seeing it, up to today's usage as well. But just as interestingly, I can now quickly zero in on the top users of hall passes. And in this case, because students are also creating passes, we might see students in the created pass list, and we can see their roles on campus very easily here. And in this case, I'm very quick to identify that in 3 days, Jason's student has, generated 22 passes and has spent 4 hours out of class time in 3 days. So obviously, becomes and my Giuseppe student is also, generated 14 passes and spent 4 hours out of class on hall passes. So very quick indicators that, I've got some obvious sort of situations that I need to look into. So I can just take a look, and now I can look at this summary of just Jason and quickly see, hey, what is Jason up to? He's got, restroom passes. Oh, there was a big health pass there, but today, 25 minutes of fountain passes and another 15 minutes of restroom passes. I think we've got some, maybe this is a teachable, learnable moment with Jason, and we need just to have an understanding of what's going on with Jason. Or maybe I need to take a look at, talking to security, we've had a couple complaints of Giuseppe and Jason being caught outside of class together. And we're going to, dig in a little bit and find out what those two are up to. So now we've come in and we've had the conversation, we've had the opportunity to report on some of the data. Oh, I see Richard has thrown a question in, which I'll just capture there too. Can you also see which teachers are generating the most passes? So yeah, Richard, great question. So that's actually, let me refresh that real quick. So that's actually in that top creator. We're going to see Jason teacher was actually my #1 teacher generating hall passes. And I can see that by role very quickly. That's the T for teacher role. And that would be people creating the pass. So in this case, as I mentioned, students might show up in here as well as the top creators. Although in this case, we have a teacher, an owner, and administrators that are all the top hall pass creators. But because I can see the role very quickly too, I'm going to know who's creating the passes as well as the top users of the passes. Hopefully it answers that question. Because sometimes we just might be an opportunity to talk with a teacher and talk about hall pass, sort of effective managed hall pass usage on campus. If we've got a lot of one or two teachers generating a lot of passes for any types of reasons. So now that I've got a couple questions here, I'm gonna just let them fly online. So are students rostered to teachers from the attendance system, and will it notify teachers if someone is already out for the restroom from their class specifically? If a teacher's Chromebook cannot print, I'm not sure I totally get, but I mean, I think, so the short answer, Sarah, is that no, the student's not necessarily rostered directly to the teacher. And I think the use case that you're talking about is, so what if a student, like in between classes, it's in between my period 1 and period 2, a student goes and creates their own hall pass and just doesn't show up to class. And now the teacher doesn't know that they've created their own hall pass. And so what we actually give you the opportunity to do is to create a scheduled blackout periods for the first 5 or 7 minutes of each class, or the last 5 or 7 and first 5 or 7 of each class. So we'll end up with like a 15-minute blackout window where passes can't be created. And so in those situations, students still need to check in with class and would still ask permission to go before they were allowed out of class. And then Kyle continued with, if a student generates it, is there a way to see how many teachers are letting their students out if they aren't creating it? How many teachers are letting their students out if they aren't creating it? I guess in that case, Kyle, that's from Kyle. And he says, if a student generates it, is there a way to see how many teachers are letting their students out if they aren't creating it? So I guess we would never know if the pass was never created. So that's why doing the workflow at the beginning, the teacher training is really just about that process of, Mr. Anderson, I need to go to the bathroom. At that point, Mr. Anderson says, yes, go ahead, create your hall pass. Then he would show Mr. Anderson that the pass was created. And that's the teacher, training moment there that we need to make sure it comes into play, so that way we know the hall passes are being created in the first place. Stacy's asking, what's the campus cost for this system? I'm just going to redirect everyone. Our pricing is actually right on our website, as I'm sure that question will come up for everyone at some point here. So if you go to minga.io and then just click on pricing at the top, you can see based on school sizes the cost of modules. Just to understand the cost of the hall pass module is that the hall pass module does require the ID module. As T. Carey just asked that exact question. So yes, it is built right into there. I have another question from T. Carey. Can it be set to passes to only be created by staff and not let students create their own passes? 100%. So that question comes up a lot. We really focus, and we did a lot of work on the workflow stuff. We do encourage, we think the best practices of a student created pass to minimize classroom impact is very important, but not required. So if you don't want students creating hall passes, in hall pass settings, you can actually aggregately turn it off that students cannot grant their own hall pass. Or if you want to restrict the hall pass types, student can do, you can just check those off right here. So I could unselect, restroom and just have a fountain pass for students, but that option is available right here as well, that you can control either what passes students can create or if they can create them at all. And then to that point, they do ask the most dreaded question of all digital systems is, does it have an offline mode if the internet is down? And for hall passes, no. There's the hall passes are authenticated when they're created, so there is no way for a student to get around it or to use it if the internet's down. because then students would just shut off their Wi-Fi and create their hall passes so that they would never get tracked. And it does create that, that challenge where we are, to ensure accurate and forced tracking of the system, it requires, it's very tiny internet. It doesn't require a lot. It's just an authentication request, but it does require some internet. So kind of coming through now that we have, and please keep the questions coming. Richard asks, can you address why a basketball game RSVP is listed on one of the screens you were showing? Yeah, that's a great question. So as I kind of started with Minga is a student engagement platform. So we are really a one-stop shop for everything outside the classroom. And in this case, what we're seeing right there are some features of the community and communication, component, which built right on top of the digital ID gives you the ability to, well, we can see it over here on, also share to and push things like posts, videos, photos, events and activities, announcements, polls and surveys and alerts, as well as nice, rich graphical posters and all that stuff directly to students through the community and communication module, so that we now have a one-stop shop feed for all of our, communication and information happening and taking place at school. So a perfect place, since when you open your ID now, we're going to say, hey, remember to buy prom tickets on, by Friday. And here's your link to buy prom tickets once you're there, and all the information you need, so that we're also taking advantage of things like the ID to streamline and dramatically improve, communication, with the objective of driving involvement and engagement on campus and building a more connected community. So thanks, great question, Richard. So driving right in here, now that we have done some reporting and we realize Jason and Giuseppe are our two troublemakers on campus, which is also the two troublemakers here at Minga. Now, rather than lock down hall pass usage across the campus, what I'm gonna do is just put some controls on Giuseppe and Jason for starters. And the first control is kind of a fun, we call it the no party group. And that means Jason and Giuseppe are no longer allowed to party together. So I can't text Giuseppe anymore and say, hey, meet me out in the bathroom, meet me out in the hallway in 5 minutes. Because I'm gonna create a SEP Jason no party group. And I'm just very easily going to add my two troublemakers to this no party group. And I can see now I have them both selected right here, Jason Student and Giuseppe Simpatico. I save that. And I've now created a no party group, which I can see who that contains, and it's active. So that means that Jason and Giuseppe are no longer allowed to have simultaneous hall passes. So I can still create my own in this case. So Jason created the hall pass and I'm off to the bathroom. But the moment that Giuseppe tries to create a pass, he's going to get blocked. It's going to say that he's not able to create the pass because he's on, it's not going to tell him because of Jason, but because he's on a no pass list. And we can actually even see that take place here, because as a teacher, I'll get a warning. So first off, I'm going to go here real quick and I'll create a hall pass for Jason. No, for Giuseppe, because I have Jason logged in the other one. So I'll give Giuseppe a 5-minute hall pass right now. And then over here, I have Jason Student. I've got all these browsers. I just refresh them to make sure that I'm actually loading the right one here. So Jason Student. And I'm going to go create my hall pass. So I can go meet Seppi in the bathroom. And I'm just given a note that I'm not allowed to create a hall pass at this time. So that's blocked me now from actually going and coming out to party with Giuseppe. In addition, now I can also start to put restrictions on the number of students that number of passes that students can create in a day. So we opened it up at the beginning, but we're like 10 is way too many in a day. we're going to start, bringing general student restrictions down to 3 passes a day. And we've got too much loitering taking place. So I'm going to bring down my number of simultaneous passes to 40. And of course, this is going to be, relative to your school size. So I see Nancy has a question. So for clarification, if a student doesn't have a phone, how do they check in and out? So Nancy, depending on that usage, that's where you could use a Chromebook as a kiosk at the front of the class as well. They don't need to carry it with them because any other staff member on campus can see active passes or student IDs at any time. So yeah, it's not dependent on students having a phone or having access to their phone in class. So, and if you are something like one-to-one Chromebooks on campus, of course, Minga can be accessed from any device and any platform. And since 99% of our students log in with single sign-on, which means they'll click sign in with Google or sign in with Microsoft, it's very easy to use, kiosk-based systems as well to have students create their hall passes at the front. And if the teacher is scanning, that's correct. There's no printing required ever for our hall passes. So teachers can create hall passes right from their phone, from their Chromebook, from their PC as well, if they want to create a pass for a student. And continuing that note, in this case, we can also now come over to our no pass list. And if we have a student that just isn't taking a hint and just continues to abuse the system at every chance, we can actually just hard enforce that student and put them on a no pass list, which now means the student can't create passes at all. And if we have teachers that, aren't doing so good either, staff members on campus that we just can't seem to get work on, or maybe we have a groups that we don't want creating hall passes, we can actually create no grant list as well, which is people that can't grant hall passes. So in this case, now Mark is not able to create a pass for himself, which we've now made the workflow much harder for Mark. But teachers can still create passes. So I'll make sure I go to the right one here. That's Jason student. Where is Jason? There's Jason teacher. So this is now my teacher account here. So while Mark can't create his own pass anymore, a teacher can create a pass. And you'll notice that we made that workflow really easy for teachers because their default screen is actually their teacher tools page, which is also their link for any groups that they manage and stuff like that as well. And links into the ID dashboard and the active pass dashboard for them right here, but also the hot links into things like behavior tracking for PBIS and tracking would all be right on this page as well. So if I wanted to track a behavior, just do it with a couple clicks right from my home screen. So in this case, I'm going to come to give Mark a pass. So although Mark can no longer create his own passes, of course, I can still create a pass for Mark, although I will get a notification that he's on the no pass list, but I can continue anyways. And then as a teacher from that teacher tools screen, very easy for me to see the active passes, including that pass I just created for Mark. And so once we've gone through, identified our top abusers, then we come into just managing, just like we did there, just managing our problem areas and monitoring progress. So the reporting is really easy and it's very simple to take a look and see if, the implementations that I put in place to manage hall pass usage are actually working effectively. Because I can come in at any time. That's Jason teacher. That's Jason student. There's Jason administrator. And I've got very easy access to that reporting workflow to look over time and say, how did, I want to look at the last few days here. See how my hall pass has trended since I put those controls in place. Take a look and see, where's Jason student fitting in, or who are my other top users. Now that Jason student and Giuseppe have been taken care of and managed appropriately to control the impact that they're having in our hallway, it's Are there other students rolling right to the top? And we just take a look at and keep an eye on that usage. And it's all nicely linked together here as well. So if my next person coming up is Peter, then I can come back and take a look too. Not only can I see Peter by summary, but I can take a look in here and actually look at all of Peter's hall pass history. So I've got a very easy way to use Peter or to take a look at the history that Peter has been done, and that's just the value and power of having all that data right away at a click. Sarah asked another question. Juan asked a question, can this recording be shared? Yes, Juan, we will make sure everyone gets a link to the recording when we're finished. And Sarah says, can the system be used to create signups for classroom supplies like calculators or Chromebooks? Yeah, Sarah, we have some ways to do things like, check in and check out, but for assets, I'm going to say like we can do it by event-based or behavior-based check-in and checkouts. I wouldn't say it's the way our system is necessarily intended to be used, but we do definitely see custom behaviors being tracked for, like a Chromebook checkout or an asset checkout. And then that way we have it tracked that when they record it and we can track when they return it so that we know that it's coming in and out. But, we're not specifically, or there's not specifically an asset tracking module. We just typically, it's used right inside behaviors. So let's talk about a couple of very interesting use cases, because of course the bathroom and restroom hall pass covers off that 90% of our hall pass usage. But digital hall passes have a couple other really great benefits right out of the gate for usage on campus. The first one is my basketball use case. So because we have that senior basketball game coming in. So first off, we're going to create a new event today. We're going to create a new event for tomorrow. Tomorrow, there's another basketball game. It's a big home game tomorrow against our rivals. I don't have a good basketball on this one, but we put our description in there, all the info we need for this event. And it's hosted by the senior basketball team. It's in the South Gym. Whoops. It's athletics, and it's tomorrow at 3 p.m., right when school's finished. So first thing we do is we create that event. So now everybody knows that there's this big game tomorrow, but we've got a lot of students on campus. And in order to be ready for a 3 o'clock game, I need my basketball players to get out of class at 2 so that they can get to the gym and get warmed up. So how do I do that? Well, if I'm the coach, now with the hall pass module on Minga, so this would be Jason coach now, not Jason teacher, but I'm going to pop right in here to my hall pass manager. And I guess first I'll show that as a group here, I'm managing and organizing my basketball team right here on Minga as well. So all the information for my basketball team is right here. They know about the event. We've already talked about it. Their parents know about it. All that stuff's good. But I need now to get my 20 basketball players, out of class at 2 o'clock tomorrow so they can get to my game. So right in the hall pass module, I'm going to give them all my players on my basketball team. I'm going to create a hall pass for them for tomorrow. It really just needs to be a short one. They're just going to show that they get out. They're coming straight to the gym. But I don't want to have to remember to give that hall pass tomorrow. So I'm actually going to pop right in here. And I'm going to schedule those passes to automatically start tomorrow at 2 p.m. Of course, I've exceeded my max passes because I just put those restrictions on there, but that's okay. I know that's happening. So now if I look under my scheduled passes, I can see my whole basketball team has scheduled passes. They've just received a push notification that they have a pass scheduled for them. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., they'll get another notification that their pass started. And then all they need to do is open up their ID again, back to the student, open up their ID again and show their teacher their hall pass is going to be right on here. So that they have a transfer pass for 3 o'clock, it was scheduled. And if the teacher, on the other side of that, of course, just in case they didn't have their device, or addressing that point one more time here too, that from my teacher tools, I can view my active passes. Right account there. Oh, I scheduled those for tomorrow. They're not actually active right now. Let's start one. So we got that troublemaker Giuseppe again. That's not being awesome for me. Of course, demo laws, go. That I'm having something hiccup on me for a moment. Always a good thing. Let's do that one more time. Well, isn't that making me look a little foolish? So I'll give someone a hall pass right now. I'm going to give it back to Giuseppe. And of course, we'd see right away that that hall pass was activated for Giuseppe. And as a teacher, I'd be able to take a look right here at my active hall passes. And I'd see that active hall pass for Giuseppe right here as well, let him out of class. So that's use case number 1. Use case number 2 is I'm a teacher and I'm transferring a student that I want to send over to detention. And we want to actually know that that student that left here actually checked into detention for some reason that we just need. Maybe it's for, let's take a detention away. That seems so punitive. Let's say it's for a tutoring session and we want to make sure that they're tutoring. I do see a few questions. I'm going to jump right into those. Thank you, everyone. So we have a student that I want to send over to tutoring and I want to make sure that they're going to make it over to tutoring. So real quick here in my hall pass manager, I'm going to come in first and I'm going to create a new tutoring type of pass, and we'll give it a nice little purple color, make it active. I will refresh that just to make sure that that tutoring pass got loaded. Now under my hall pass, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give my student this tutoring pass. We're going to give them a 5-minute tutoring pass to get over to. So now Peter has his tutoring pass, but I want to know Peter checked in, and I want to be able to take a look at my, at my tutoring or my intervention window and see everyone that, was given an intervention, assigned an intervention pass, and then checked in. So in that case, at the opposite end, when Peter shows up, then Peter's tutor simply pops in here to their active passes. And this is Peter's tutor right here. And ends the pass. So now that Peter's made it, I just end it. I had lots of time left, but that's not the point. What I really wanted out of this is a history so that I can look at all my tutoring passes and see who created them. So that's the source teacher, and then that they checked in. It was ended by the destination teacher. And it obviously becomes very clear here if I gave a tutoring pass or an intervention pass to someone that didn't check in, because they're not going to have an ended by, stamp on the pass. And so this gives me a great way to also ensure that when I send a student out for a reason to another classroom, another teacher, to the office, to a counselor, that it was granted and ended. So they started and received both authenticated, and secured by where they were coming from and where they were going. And of course, we wouldn't make those passes ever student created. So in this case, these are very specific use cases that are, teacher or administrator created passes only. So getting into a few of the questions here, who is able to create events on the system? So Nancy, good question. So Minga is a role-based platform, and so it's by default on the Minga home feed, which is kind of like that place where we see everything, that's typically just owners and managers on the platform. And a couple of those people might be a leadership student or an ASB student, depending on where you're from, or a STUCO student. That is also, our communications coordinator that's now giving them a really powerful tool to put content in front of all your students. But then it might be a leadership or an assistant principal, or tend to be often and maybe an athletics director that are owners and managers on Minga. But as a role-based system, you have complete control over how Minga is used and set up. There's options under setting on who can post and where you can post and who can comment and where you can comment and all that stuff. So you can really tailor it, but we give you a very clear best practices guideline during onboarding on how to set Minga up and configure it and manage roles to have the most success. Because of course, groups also get into a lot of content sharing and creation. And any staff member, by default, any staff members can create their own groups. So your advisors and athletics and stuff like that can all create their own groups and manage their own groups on Minga. And then they can actually I can make the basketball captain and a co-owner of this group so that they have the ability to, communicate with the basketball team as a basketball captain as well. So role-based system, long answer short, lots of options. Nance or Deborah says, if we had passes for band, choir, sports teams for an event, exceeding the number of allowed out at a time, would that lock out all of the students on campus? Deborah, great question that we actually got into very quickly when we started doing workflow testing with the way we built it. And so in that case, we're actually making a small adjustment where you're going to be able to have two limits. One is total number of passes per day, and then the other limit is total number of student created passes, which help you get around that. So the difference being is that I could have the total number of passes high, knowing that my coaches and teachers are creating large group passes all the time, but my student created passes are still restricted, so that student abuse of hall pass usage is still not taking place. Nancy says, if a teacher creates a pass to go somewhere like the office, can it notify that person? So great question, Nancy. In that case, we wouldn't know the office user, specifically at the moment. So if you created a pass to request the student, it would notify the student, but it's not going to notify the office at that point. So the student's responsibility is to come and make sure that the pass gets ended by the office administrator and is terminated for their check-in for that. But great question and great use case. And so, we're definitely open to continuing to learn as the technology just in general is very new, and we do definitely foresee continuing to update the hall pass module as we learn more and more and roll out to more and more schools. So we've done a lot of workflow testing, and it's going to be an evolving solution to make sure that it's works as best as possible on campus. Great question. Thank you, Nancy. So we've gotten through that. And, now we're just continuing to report. And of course, just a summary of kind of the benefits of going digital for your hall passes. Centralized reporting, data is just that really powerful component here. Centralized reporting on hall pass usage at the school-wide level and helping you improve hallway safety and security. The big emphasis where I think, we've really done a lot of work, and I'm just really proud of our team, is the easy to use and fast, workflows that are not only really easy for students and staff on campus, but just as importantly, really easy to learn. So we're not overwhelming people with technology here. It's really about technology making these processes easier for us. The ability to manage just your problem users and groups, site-wide without having to continue to inform or drive messages around who those groups are. And that integration, it's back to that not overwhelming with technology component. Minga really gives you the opportunity to start to streamline and consolidate just so many different platforms on campus, from things like all your communication channels and your Instagram feeds and Facebook groups and Snapchat groups and text messaging groups and remind groups and all those other things. The other apps that students might be trying to hack with their student IDs, like clunky access through the student information system to get to an ID, all the way to Google Sheets and spreadsheets and the ticketing systems and the tracking systems, the PBIS systems on campus, and now one more, of course, those hall pass systems. So depending on what you're doing on campus today, we're really looking at integrating so many different tools and resources on campus into one. And with Minga, as always, all of your training and support is included in our pricing. We run multiple community classes every week, as well as your introduction to our onboarding program is going to make sure that you have everything you need to roll this out effectively and easily on campus. And lastly, but not least, is, sorry, it's a thing. Why does someone leaving the office there? Lastly, but not least, is next steps for everyone on here is we are just prepping to roll this out. Well, it's been rolled out obviously with our beta testers and our beta customers, and we're getting ready to launch. We'd love to talk to you more, talk about your use cases, talk to you about how Minga fits on campus, how we not only streamline the process of things like student IDs, streamline communication, but how that all comes together to create stronger communities on campus and give you better tools to manage and engage with everything outside the classroom. So just pop onto our website at minga.io. And right from there, just click that book a demo site and we'll schedule some one-on-one time with you to chat how this could look on your campus and answer any specific questions that you might have regarding hall passes or everything else that's part of the Minga engagement platform. So with that, I know we're coming right up on our time, and I'm happy to answer a few more questions if there's any that are coming up here. There's a lot of great questions already. Thank you all so much for coming, and I hope we answered some of your questions and showed you some neat new ways to do hall passes. And we'd love your feedback too. So if you see something that was great that you loved, please let us know. But just as valuable, if you see things that you think are missing or that we might be able to do better, we'd love to hear from you and continue those conversations. And Brenda, yes, we will definitely send everyone a copy of the recording. It'll take a couple hours for that recording to process and upload to YouTube, and then we'll send some follow-ups to everyone that participated today. So thank you again, everyone. Really appreciate and value your time. I know it's a busy time of year, so it just means that much more to us that you chose to spend an hour at the end of school year with us. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.